Well, good morning or afternoon or whatever time it happens to be, wherever you are, whenever you're seeing this. I'm here with the next part of Death on the Nile by Agatha Christie. I had to do it in this weird way today just because, and this is my own fault. When I was getting set to record, I noticed that my phone was just about dead because I hadn't charged it all day. It was really like down to like its down to like 1-2%. So um, I needed to charge, and where I do the recordings where it seems to work best where I am now. I'm not really all that outlet accessible. It'd be a little tough to set up my phone and have it charge while I was doing this. So, but I want to make sure I got a recording in because it's been a few days. And most importantly, my wife Kelly, to whom all these readings are always dedicated, is going to be working late tonight. She's logging some overtime at work, and I just thought it would be on a day like that to be especially nice for her to have, something to take the edge off during a long day like that. So I wanted to make sure I got some kind of reading up today. So the way I'm going to have to do it just this one time, and I've done it this way before for for similar circumstances where my phone was dead, and that's what I usually record on, and it was going to be tough to record not record on, but it's what I typically broadcast on, and it was going to be tough to broadcast and have a charge at the same time. So uh, so what I've done in that past instance is what I'm going to do now, which is I'm recording it on my laptop. So if the picture looks a little different, that's why. So I'm recording this on my laptop, and then I'm going to post it as a YouTube video to my YouTube account, and then I'll post the link. Which again, if you're seeing this, you've already discovered all this, but I'll post the link to the YouTube video on my Facebook page. So she can access it that way, and you can access it that way if you'd like, and I hope you do. I'm glad you're here. But I also can't interact with you right now the way we're doing this. So it's not going to be something where I'll be able to talk with anybody who happens to come by to catch some of the reading. But I can certainly talk to you in the comments afterward if you're up for that. So as always, feel free to drop a comment on here about the book itself, about the performance, such as it is. But anything you got, I would love to get a discussion going about this book as we go through. But the important thing is that I am getting a recording up somehow or other for my wife Kelly, who to whom I do all these readings. These are always dedicated to her. The ultimate mystery fan, the ultimate true crime fan, everything, Agatha Christie, straight on through to diagnosis murder. Those are all. This is just her thing. So so if I can bring her thing during a long, tough day at work and help take the edge off a little bit, then it is my privilege to do so. So I'm getting this to you somehow, honey. It's not the way I would have preferred to do it, but we'll take it. But enough already. Let's just get going with where we left off. We're still actually, this is all still chapter 1 that I believe we're in, but the chapters appear to be divided into sections as well, that are numbered by Roman numeral. So there's chapter 1, and then there's different sections up to section 10 of chapter 1. And that's where we left off. So that's where we'll pick up here. As I explained in the first reading that I did, this is completely new territory for me as well. I've never read this. This is actually my first Agatha Christie book that I've ever read. So it's going to influence the performance because it's going to really evolve as I as I get deeper to the book, I get to know the characters better. So accents, like, I know they do anyway, but I mean, accents are going to change, and the performance is gonna change. It's gonna evolve as I get to know the story and the characters better. Other times when I've done these kinds of readings, it's always with books I had read before, so I had pretty good a pretty good idea of what of the story itself and of the characters and how they um, how they ought to be portrayed, at least in my interpretation. But I had an interpretation. I had something to go on. I don't have anything to go on here because I am encountering this for the first time, just as you may very well be encountering this for the first time. Um, so my disclaimer about bear with me, this is a work in progress, is going to be especially true for this novel, for these readings, and my disclaimers about graphic depictions of sex or violence or strong language or any warnings around like the culture of this book and any sort of jarring moments of just different values from a different time. That all may be coming up. It might not. I don't know. Kelly would actually know better than me because she said that she actually did read this book way back. So, but it's all new to me. So we'll just encounter it together. That's all. But yeah, again, I said we're gonna get going, and then I rambled on for 2 more minutes. Let's pick up. We're in section 10 of chapter 1 of Death on the Nile by Agatha Christie. And honey, whenever you're catching this, I hope it's making your day better. I know you're working a miserably long day, and then you're working late, and then you gotta go back and get back out there at your usual ridiculously early time. So hopefully this makes things slightly better for you. And I hope everybody else enjoys it too. But let's get going with continuing with Death on the Nile by Agatha Christie. In his downtown office, Mr. Andrew Pennington was opening his personal mail. Suddenly his fist clenched itself and came down on his desk with a bang. His face crimsoned and 2 big veins stood out on his forehead. He pressed the buzzer on his desk and a smart-looking stenographer appeared with a commendable promptitude. "Tell Mr. Rockford to step in here." "Yes, Mr. Pennington." A few minutes later, Sterndale Rockford, Pennington's partner, entered the office. The 2 men were not unlike, both tall, spare, with graying hair and clean-shaven, clever faces. "What's up, Pennington?" Pennington looked up from the letter he was rereading. He said, "Linnet's married." "What?" "You heard what I said. Linnet Ridgway's married." "How? When? Why didn't we hear about it?" Pennington glanced at the calendar on his desk. "She wasn't married when she wrote this letter, but she's married now. Morning of the 4th. That's today." Rockford dropped into a chair. "No warning. Nothing? Who's the man?" Pennington referred again to the letter. "Doyle. Simon Doyle." "What sort of a fellow is he? Ever heard of him?" "No. She doesn't say much." He scanned the lines of clear, upright handwriting. "Got an idea there's something in corner about this business. That doesn't matter. The point is, she's married." The eyes of the 2 men met. Rockford nodded. "This needs a bit of thinking out," he said quietly. "What are we going to do about it?" "I'm asking you." The 2 men sat silent. Then Rockford asked, "Got any plan?" Pennington said slowly, "The Normandie sails today. One of us could just make it." "You're crazy. What's the big idea?" Pennington began. "Those British lawyers." He stopped. "What about them?" "Surely you're not going over to tackle them. You're mad." I'm not suggesting that you or I should go to England. What's the big idea then? Pennington smoothed out the letter on the table. Lynette's going to Egypt for her honeymoon. Expects to be there a month or more. Egypt, eh? Rockford considered. Then he looked up at the other's glance. Egypt, he said. That's your idea. Yes. A chance meeting. Over on a trip. Lynette and her husband. Honeymoon atmosphere. Might be done. Rockford said doubtfully. She's sharp, Lynette is, but Pennington went on softly. I think there might be ways of managing it. Again, their eyes met. Rockford nodded. All right, big boy. Pennington looked at the clock. We'll have to hustle. Whichever one of us is going. You go, said Rockford promptly. You always made a hit with Lynette. Uncle Andrew, that's the ticket. Pennington's face had hardened. He said, I hope I can pull it off. You've got to pull it off, his partner said. The situation's critical. You know, something's critical. Like, pathetic-looking hair. And you just close your eyes when you listen to this stuff. You don't need to see me, right? But boy, look at us. Anyway. William Carmichael said to the thin, weedy youth who opened the door inquiringly. Oh, hang on a second, let me just check something. Okay, sorry. William Carmichael said to the thin, weedy youth who opened the door inquiringly. Send Mr. Jim to me, please. Jim Fanthorpe entered the room and looked inquiringly at his uncle. The older man looked up with a nod and a grunt. Let me try that one more time. I'm going to take this right from the top. See, again, this is just going to evolve as we go. William Carmichael said to the thin, weedy youth who opened the door inquiringly, Send Mr. Jim to me, please. Jim Fanthorpe entered the room and looked inquiringly at his uncle. The older man looked up with a nod and a grunt. There you are. Just cast an eye over this. The young man sat down and drew the sheaf of papers towards him. The elder man watched. Well? The answer came promptly. Looks fishy to me, sir. Again, the senior partner of Carmichael, Grant, and Carmichael uttered his characteristic grunt. Jim Fanthorpe reread the letter which had just arrived by airmail from Egypt. It seems wicked to be writing business letters on such a day. We have spent a week at Mina House and made an expedition to the Fayoum. The day after tomorrow we are going up the Nile to Luxor and Aswan by steamer, and perhaps on to Khartoum. When we went into Cook's this morning to see about our tickets to... Who do you think was the first person I saw? My American trustee, Andrew Pennington. I think you met him 2 years ago when he was over. I had no idea that he was in Egypt, and he had no idea that I was, nor that I was married. My letter telling him of my marriage must just have missed him. He's actually going up the Nile on the same trip that we are. Isn't it a coincidence? Thank you so much for all you have done in this busy time. As the young man was about to turn the page, Mr. Carmichael took the letter from him. That's all, he said. The rest doesn't matter. Well, what do you think? His nephew considered for a moment, then he said, Well, I think not a coincidence. The other nodded approval. Like a trip to Egypt? He barked out. You think that's advisable? I think there's no time to lose. Why me? Use your brains, boy, use your brains. Lynette Ridgway's never met you. No more has Pennington. If you go by air, you may get there in time. I don't like it. Perhaps not. But you've got to do it. It's necessary? In my opinion, said Mr. Carmichael, it's absolutely vital. Mrs. Otterborn, readjusting the turban of native material that she wore draped around her head, said fretfully, I really don't see why we should go on to Egypt. I'm sick and tired of Jerusalem. As her daughter made no reply, she said, You might at least answer when you're spoken to. Rosalie Otterburn was looking at a newspaper reproduction of a face. Below it was printed, Mrs. Simon Doyle, who before her marriage was the well-known society beauty Miss Linnet Ridgway. Mr. and Mrs. Doyle are spending their holiday in Egypt. Rosalie said, "You'd like to move on to Egypt, Mother?" "Yes, I would," Mrs. Otterburn snapped. "I consider they've treated us in a most cavalier fashion here. My being here is an advertisement. I ought to get a special reduction in terms. When I hinted as much, I considered they were most impertinent. Most impertinent. I told them exactly what I thought of them." The girl sighed. She said, "One place is very like another. I wish we could get right away." "And this morning," went on Mrs. Otterburn, "the manager actually had the impertinence to tell me that all the rooms had been booked in advance, and that he would require ours in 2 days' time." "So we've got to go somewhere." "Not at all. I'm quite prepared to fight for my rights," Rosalie murmured. "Suppose we might as well go on to Egypt. Doesn't make any difference." "It's certainly not a matter of life or death," agreed Mrs. Otterburn. But there she was quite wrong. For a matter of life and death was exactly what it was. 2. "That's Hercule Poirot, the detective," said Mrs. Allerton. She and her son were sitting in brightly painted scarlet basket chairs outside the Cataract Hotel in Aswan. They were watching the retreating figures of 2 people. A short man dressed in a white silk suit, a short man dressed in a white silk suit, and a tall, slim girl. Tim Allerton sat up in an unusually alert fashion. "That funny little man?" he asked incredulously. "That funny little man." "What on earth's he doing here?" Tim asked. His mother laughed. "Darling, you sound quite excited. Why do men enjoy crime so much? I hate detective stories and never read them. But I don't think Monsieur Poirot is here with any ulterior motive. He's made a good deal of money, and he's seeing life, I fancy. Seems to have an eye for the best-looking girl in the place." Mrs. Allerton tilted her head a little on one side as she considered the retreating backs of Monsieur Poirot and his companion. The girl by his side overtopped him by some 3 inches. She walked well, neither stiffly nor slouchingly. Yeah! Work in progress. Okay. Let me try that sentence one more time. The girl by his side overtopped him by some 3 inches. She walked well, neither stiffly nor sloughingly. "Suppose she is quite good-looking," said Mrs. Allerton. She shot a little sideways glance at Tim. Somewhat to her amusement, the fish rose at once. "She's more than quite. Pity she looks so bad-tempered and sulky. Perhaps that's just expression, dear. Unpleasant young devil, I think, but she's pretty enough." The subject of these remarks was walking slowly by Poirot's side. Rosalie Otterburn was twirling an unopened parasol, and her expression certainly bore out what Tim had just said. She looked both sulky and bad-tempered. Her eyebrows were drawn together in a frown, and the scarlet line of her mouth was drawn downward. They turned to the left out of the hotel gate and entered the cool shade of the public gardens. Hercule Poirot was prattling gently, his expression that of beatific good humor. He wore a white silk suit. White, boy, if that's going to keep happening, it's going to be tricky. Carefully pressed, and a Panama hat, and carried a highly ornamental fly whisk with a sham amber handle. "It enchants me," he was saying. "The black rocks of Elephantine, and the sun, and little boats on the river. Yes, it's good to be alive." He paused and then added, "You do not find it so, mademoiselle?" Rosalie Otterburn said shortly, "It's all right, I suppose. I think Aswan's a gloomy sort of place. The hotel's half empty, and everyone's about 100. She stopped, biting her lip. Hercule Poirot's eyes twinkled. "It is true, yes. I have one leg in the grave." I wasn't thinking of you," said the girl. "I'm sorry. That sounded rude." "Not at all. It is natural you should wish for your companions of your own age. Ah, well, there is one young man at least." "Want to sit with his mother all the time? I like her, but I think he looks dreadful. So conceited." Poirot smiled. And am I conceited? Oh, I don't think so. She was obviously uninterested, but the fact did not seem to annoy Poirot. He merely remarked with placid satisfaction, did I? Hang on a minute. Oh, let me try that again. I think I got the dial. Again, if I knew this by where on this book, I would have been able to figure this out. Okay. What who sits with his mother all the time? I like her, but I think he looks dreadful. So conceited. Poirot smiled. And I? Am I conceited? Oh, I don't think so. She was obviously uninterested, but the fact did not seem to annoy Poirot. He merely remarked with placid satisfaction, My best friend says that I am very conceited. Oh, well, said Rosalie vaguely, suppose you have something to be conceited about. Unfortunately, crime doesn't interest me in the least. Poirot said solemnly, I am delighted to learn that you have no guilty secret to hide. Just for a moment, the sulky mask of her face was transformed as she shot him a swift, questioning glance. Poirot did not seem to notice it as he went on. Madame, your mother was not at lunch today. She is not indisposed, I trust? This place doesn't suit her, said Rosalie briefly. I shall be glad when we leave. We are fellow passengers, are we not? We both make the excursion up to the Wadi... try that again. We are fellow passengers, are we not? We both make the excursion up to Wadi Halfa and the Second Cataract? Yes. They came out from the shade of the gardens onto a dusty stretch of road bordered by the river. 5 watchful bead sellers, 2 vendors of postcards, 3 sellers of plaster scarabs, a couple of donkey boys, and some detached but hopeful infantile riffraff closed in upon them. You want beads, sir? Very good, very cheap. Lady, you want scarab? Look, great queen, very lucky. You look, sir, real lapis, very good, very cheap. You want ride donkey, sir? This very good donkey, this donkey, whiskey and soda, sir. You want to go to Grand Quarry, sir? This very good donkey, other donkey, very bad, sir. This donkey, that donkey fall down. You want postcard? Very cheap, very nice. Look, lady, only 10 piastres. Very cheap lapis, this ivory. This very good fly whisk, this all amber. You go out in boat, sir? I got very good boat, sir. You go back to hotel, lady? This first-class donkey. Hercule Poirot made vague gestures to rid himself of this human cluster of flies. Rosalie stalked through them like a sleepwalker. It's best to pretend to be deaf and blind, she remarked. The infantile riffraff ran alongside, murmuring plaintively, Bakshish, bakshish, hip hip hurrah, very good, very nice. Their gaily colored rags trailed picturesquely, and the flies lay in clusters on their eyelids. They were the most persistent. The others fell back and launched a fresh attack on the next corner. Now Poirot and Rosalie only ran the gauntlet of the shops. Suave, persuasive accents here. You visit my shop today, sir? You want that ivory crocodile, sir? You have not been in my shop yet, sir. I show you very beautiful things. They turned into the 5th shop, and Rosalie handed over several rolls of film, the object of the walk. Then they came out again and walked toward the river's edge. One of the Nile steamers was just mooring. Poirot and Rosalie looked interestedly at the passengers. Quite a lot, aren't there? Commented Rosalie. She turned her head as Tim Allerton came up and joined them. He was a little out of breath, as though he had been walking fast. They stood there for a moment or two, and then Tim spoke. An awful crowd as usual, I suppose, he remarked disparagingly, indicating the disembarking passengers. They're usually quite terrible, agreed Rosalie. All 3 wore the air of superiority assumed by people who were already in the place when studying new arrivals. Hello, exclaimed Tim, his voice suddenly excited. I'm damned if that isn't Lilith Ridgway. If the information left Poirot unmoved, it stirred Rosalie's interest. She leaned forward, and her sulkiness quite dropped from her as she asked, Where? That one in white? Yes, there with the tall man. They're coming ashore now. He's the new husband, I suppose. Can't remember his name now. Doyle, said Rosalie. Simon Doyle. It was in all the newspapers. She's simply rolling, isn't she? Only about the richest girl in England, replied Tim cheerfully. The 3 lookers-on were silent, watching the passengers come ashore. Poirot gazed with interest at the subject of the remarks of his companions. He murmured, She is beautiful. Some people have got everything, said Rosalie bitterly. There was a queer, grudging expression on her face as she watched the other girl come up the gangplank. Leonard Doyle was looking as perfectly turned out as if she were stepping on the center of the stage of a revue. She had something, too, of the assurance of a famous actress. She was used to being looked at, to being admired, to being the center of the stage wherever she went. She was aware of the keen glances bent upon her, and at the same time almost unaware of them. Such tributes were part of her life. She came ashore playing a role, even though she played it unconsciously. The rich, beautiful society bride on her honeymoon. She turned, with a little smile and a light remark, to the tall man by her side. He answered, and the sound of his voice seemed to interest Hercule Poirot. His eyes lit up, and he drew his brows together. The couple passed close to him. He heard Simon Doyle say, "We'll try and make time for it, darling. You can easily stay a week or two if you like it here." His face was turned towards her, eager, adoring, a little humble. Poirot's eyes ran over him thoughtfully. The square shoulders, the bronzed face, the dark blue eyes, the rather childlike simplicity of the smile. "Lucky devil," said Tim after they had passed. "Fancy finding an heiress who hasn't got adenoids and flat feet." "They look frightfully happy," said Rosalie with a note of envy in her voice. She added suddenly, but so low that Tim did not catch the words, "It isn't fair." Poirot heard, however. He had been frowning somewhat perplexedly, but now he flashed a quick glance towards her. Tim said, "I must collect some stuff for my mother now." He raised his hat and moved off. Poirot and Rosalie retraced their steps slowly in the direction of the hotel, waving aside fresh proffers of donkeys. "So, it is not fair, mademoiselle?" asked Poirot gently. The girl flushed angrily. "I don't know what you mean." "I am repeating what you said just now under your breath." "Oh, yes, you did." Rosalie Otterburn shrugged her shoulders. "Really seems a little too much for one person. Money, good looks, marvelous figure, and—" She paused, and Poirot said, "And love, eh? And love? But you do not know. She may have been married for her money." "Didn't you see the way he looked at her?" "Oh, yes, mademoiselle, I was all there to see. I saw all there was to see. Indeed, I saw something you did not." "What was that?" Poirot said slowly, "I saw, mademoiselle, dark lines below a woman's eyes. I saw a hand that clutched the sunshade so tight that the knuckles were white." Rosalie was staring at him. "What do you mean?" "I mean that all is not the gold that glitters. I mean that, though this lady is rich and beautiful and beloved, there is all the same something that is not right. And I know something else." "Yes?" "I know," said Poirot, frowning, "that somewhere, at some time, I have heard that voice before. The voice of Monsieur Doyle. And I wish I could remember where." But Rosalie was not listening. She had stopped dead. With the point of her sunshade she was tracing patterns in the loose sand. Suddenly she broke out fiercely, "I'm odious! I'm quite odious! I'm just a beast through and through! I'd like to tear the clothes off her back and stamp on her lovely, arrogant, self-confident face! I'm just a jealous cat! But that's what I feel like! She's so horribly successful and poised and assured!" Hercule Poirot looked a little astonished by the outburst. He took her by the arm and gave her a friendly little shake. "Tenez, you will feel better for having said that. I just hate her. I've never hated anyone so much at first sight. Magnificent." Rosalie looked at him doubtfully. Then her mouth twitched and she laughed. "Bien," said Poirot, and laughed too. They proceeded amicably back to the hotel. "I must find Mother," said Rosalie as they came into the cool, dim hall. See how close we are to an end of a section here. Not very. I may just pick a convenient stopping point because, as I said, I was going to try and keep these to roughly half an hour. Thank you for being patient. So trying to run my places again. Here we go. All right. Poirot passed out on the other side of the terrace overlooking the Nile. Here were little tables set for tea, but it was early still. He stood for a few moments looking at the river, then strolled down through the garden. Some people were playing tennis in the hot sun. He paused to watch them for a while, then went on down the steep path. It was here, sitting on a bench overlooking the Nile, that he came upon the girl of Chez Ma Tante. He recognized her at once. Her face as he had seen it that night was securely etched upon his memory. The expression on it now was very different. She was paler, thinner, and there were lines that told of a great weariness and misery of spirit. He drew back a little. She had not seen him, and he watched for a while without her, suspecting his presence. Her small foot tapped impatiently on the ground. Her eyes, dark with a kind of smoldering fire, had a queer kind of suffering, dark triumph in them. She was looking out across the Nile where the white-sailed boats glided up and down the river. A face and a voice. He remembered them both. This girl's face and the voice he had heard just now, the voice of a newly made bridegroom. And even as he stood there considering the unconscious girl, the next scene of the drama was played. Voices sounded above. The girl in the seat started to her feet. Linnet Doyle and her husband came down the path. Linnet's voice was happy and confident. The look of strain and tenseness of muscle had quite disappeared. Linnet was happy. The girl who was standing there took a step or two forward. The other two stopped dead. "Hello, Linnet," said Jacqueline de Belfort. "So here you are. We never seem to stop running into each other. Hello, Simon. How are you?" Linnet Doyle had shrunk back against the rock with a little cry. Simon Doyle's good-looking face was suddenly convulsed with rage. He moved forward as though he would have liked to strike the slim, girlish figure. With a quick, bird-like turn of her head, she signaled her realization of a stranger's presence. Simon turned his head and noticed Poirot. He said awkwardly, "Hello, Jacqueline. Didn't expect to see you here." The words were unconvincing in the extreme. The girl flashed white teeth at them. "Quite a surprise?" she asked. Then with a little nod she walked up the path. Poirot moved delicately in the opposite direction. As he went he heard Linnet Doyle say, "Simon! For God's sake, Simon! What can we do?" Oh, that's actually perfect. I didn't realize that was actually the end of the chapter. So that was excellent. All right, so we did a whole chapter. Look at that. Not bad. All right, I'm not going to stay too much longer, just because I don't know how much this is gonna. I don't know how much Facebook is gonna choke on down, or other YouTube's gonna choke on uploading this, because we're just over half an hour now. But so I don't know how this is gonna turn out, but I can see everyone being lined up. Like I can see suspects being rolled out, like Jacqueline. My guess is, and people who have read this before are probably just going to laugh at me for saying this. I'm guessing Linnet's going to be the one who gets killed, because there's people seem to all have fairly strong and negative opinions about her. Whether it's Jacqueline or Rosalie, or we'll see the lawyers from New York play into this. But one thing I gotta say is I already love playing Poirot. I'm gonna have I know I probably sound like Pepe Le Pew, but I or somewhere between Pepe Le Pew and Inspector Clouseau, but I love doing that accent. I know it's not probably not the least bit accurate, but I'm gonna have fun with that accent through this whole thing. So indulge me. Anyway, I'll wrap it up here. Try to be back with another chapter. I'm gonna try to do a chapter just about every night this week if I can. And I'm home. I'm actually on February vacation with the kids. But the poor, terribly strong woman to whom these are dedicated has to work all week. So, honey, I will try to get these out for you. Give you something to make your day a little easier while you're out there slaying dragons and I'm home with the gang. So Um, I hope you like this. Love you, and everyone else also very fond of you. I hope you liked it too. And I'll be back with another chapter, hopefully tomorrow or later today, again depending on when you see this. In the meantime, as always, stay safe, fight the good fight. Schlange Good night.